These are the best Bitcoin charts you are going to see today, this week, and potentially even Q1 of 2025. We have plenty of Bitcoin charts, crypto charts, but not only Bitcoin and crypto charts, traditional finance. There is a lot going on in the markets after yesterday's significant freak out for the S&P 500 dumping and the NASDAQ also dumping. However, there are particular sectors which are hitting new, fresh all-time highs, sectors which relate to the macro cycle. And as we've been talking about here now for years on the channel, the macro cycle is still well and truly up. So don't F around because you don't want to find out the hard way. Like, subscribe to the channel. It is your home of macro cycle analysis. I've been here every day now for the last several years going through the charts with you for traditional finance, so your stock markets, commodities, the real estate cycle, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies. Guys, it is our 4th birthday sale for TIA Premium. Click this link here, name and email address, and you'll be on the email list for when that sale goes live in a matter of hours. You'll also be part of the bundle suite for the indicator suite here. So check that out. More details coming up in a matter of hours. Let's kick it off with the first best Bitcoin chart, at least obviously in my opinion, because this is my analysis here on the channel. I'm looking at the interest rates decisions here, the probabilities of a rate move. So we've got a day and a half to go before the next meeting. This is going to come out roughly around Thursday morning, I believe, or Wednesday night for you guys in the US. And still, it's almost a 100% chance that the rates stay on hold, even after the Donald Trump here has advised the Fed that they must drop their interest rates. I think all that has done is pretty much move the possibility of further interest rate cuts later in the year or later in the cycle. You can see all the way out here to December of 2026. So nearly 2 years away, there is a potential for another cut there and potentially around 2 to 3 cuts over that entire 2-year period. But for now, still seeing that the interest rates are going to remain on hold here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing for the market. I think a lot of people have got this thing in their head that the interest rates must cut in order for the market to go up. That's not necessarily true. We have seen interest rates increase while the markets have also increased as well. And this goes back many, many decades that this has happened. So it's not my opinion in this case. This is just what has happened in the market, especially in the second half of the real estate cycle. This is where we are right now. Here is our 7 years, second half. Our low was roughly around 2020. So it's that March, April period of 2020 when we had the COVID dump. And since then, the markets have obviously been up. And like you can go back here on the channel, we were talking about the markets were going to go up. Meanwhile, 95% of people were saying there would be a recession and the markets had to collapse. But that doesn't happen when real estate prices are firm and they're holding. And obviously in the case of the second half of 2020 and 2021, they skyrocketed. Obviously we had a slight pullback in 2022 and they've been up since then as well. So while the land values, while real estate prices, you want to call it house prices, property prices, real estate prices, it doesn't matter what the hell you call it. At the end of the day, it is the land value, the value of the land, because the thing that sits on top, it always goes down in value because it's made out of stuff and that stuff depreciates. As long as the land is held up, the land values hold up, we have to continue up in the cycle. And for now, they continue to hold up. So that's your first fantastic news for BTC. Doesn't matter about these interest rates, whether they stay paused, whether they go down, whether the Don says they must drop or they remain the same in the next day and a half. The cycle is still up and will most likely continue to see prices increase. That is for the stock markets and I would say for BTC as well, even though in the interim there's a lot of volatility. The next thing is the S&P 500. So the next fantastic BTC chart, obviously in my opinion, is that we saw a bounce, pretty significant bounce on significant volume here yesterday in the last 24 hours for the S&P 500 off the 2 major 50% levels. The first is the double top here that we're looking at. So this is for an extension move, this one right here. I'll put that back so you can see it. That one there came off 50%. So what that then tells us is that there is less chance that you're going to see a fast move straight down to this level at 58. And it could be unlikely that we get to 58. So there could still be downside here, but it's telling us that there are more buyers stepping back into the market at key levels. Even if there is a move down, probably not going to be as severe as what people thought it was going to be 24 hours ago. So the buyers have stepped in and they basically push the price up at the close. Like the old saying goes, amateurs control the open, professionals control the close, and we definitely saw that yesterday. The amateurs got in early, tried to crash the market, and then the professionals came in during the pit session when the market opens, because there's obviously open and closes here, and they bought it back up. So it seems like we're going to get some sort of stability over the coming days or weeks in terms of this trading range here. So that's the second piece of good news. That's the S&P 500. Now the big one that I've been following here is the NASDAQ, and I was posting about this on X. Make sure you subscribe to X. Links are in the video description. Don't get scammed out there by all these sorts of accounts that are coming out now, especially while the mania is going on. Just use the official links in the video description and avoid everything else. Anything else is telling you to join Telegram or WhatsApp, it's a scam. Okay, NASDAQ 100 did also have a bounce, pretty significant volume, but as you can see here, it dropped just under the 50% level. So that's 21,400. For support over the coming days, definitely need to see some closes above 21,400 and ideally above 21,560. Otherwise, it just increases the chance that we come back down and test the 20,600, 20,700. And with that weakness under the 50% level, there's a higher chance that we come back and test the 50% levels here. Those levels are at 19,900 or roughly around 20,000 points. And you can see overall the NASDAQ is in a weaker position than the S&P 500. And of course, we've had the news now over the last 24 hours that we've got DeepSeek. There's more information on that it's cheaper to run AI out of China as well. And that's obviously freaking out a lot of the AI companies here, so on and so forth. But for now, you're still seeing a reasonable close here. It might not be as bad as what the media is telling us yet again. Over to commodities. And on Friday, we saw the third highest daily close in history for the gold futures market. So let's call this the fourth best chart now for BTC. We're seeing price rises here for gold. One might think that's not a great thing, but at the end of the cycle, you typically start to see gold prices increase. Just in the 24 hours, yep, we got a little bit of a dump here, but again, that's just a daily move, and overall still seeing higher prices. I suspect this year we're going to see gold. This is one of my forecasts that I made at the beginning of the year. You can check this out in the video description. Lots going on down there. There is a link there for my 2025 Bitcoin crypto stock market predictions that I think gold is going to close higher than it opens this year. And it still seems like that is on track. Now, with this little bit of data here, hedge fund clue for gold and commodities. Hedge fund exposure to gold has declined sharply in recent months. Often a sharp decline has pointed to higher gold prices moving forward. Somewhat surprisingly, the effect seems to be just the opposite for commodities as an asset class. Essentially, just reading the data here, red dots show when they're at this point here, the hedge fund exposure gold indicator crosses below that number, negative 0.05. That's your red dot. And you can see the red dots here. Let's zoom in a little bit. From that point, market has run up. Now, of course, it's run up through that entire period, but they've picked some pretty low points to be at the lowest exposure to gold. And on the way up, they've also sort of missed out on these gains here. But having said that, maybe they're just taking their money out of gold and putting it into the stock market, which of course has been doing pretty significant moves over the last couple of years, 25% a year in the S&P 500. As for gold, that data suggests it will probably see higher prices. And overall, well, of course, we've seen Bitcoin in a significant uptrend along with gold in this 2023, 2024, 2025 bull market. There is your October, November gold bottom after hitting a little peak here in 2020, and then gold has been up from that time too. So maybe in this second half of the cycle, they're sort of running lockstep here. The longer term view here, obviously over the months and years, day to day, it's a slightly different story, but overall they're continuing up with the second half of the cycle, along with the financial sector hitting a new fresh all-time high. So essentially, to me at least, there are more signs here that the cycle is still up and it's still continuing up, especially with these, in particular, this sector here, the financial sector, obviously banks, at least in the case of the markets, investors are expecting that they're going to see more profits from the banks. As you can see here, this is the financial sector. And literally just yesterday, when everything else dumped, you had the NASDAQ dumping way out of bed here. The S&P 500 also dumped. Well, the financial sector ran up into a new fresh high, and I believe that was a new fresh all-time high. So it's still early days. We've got a very strong close, even the strongest close in history here. As I said, another fantastic chart for BTC because we're still seeing signs that the real estate cycle is intact. You've got banks, or at least the market, expecting banks to be making more profits. You can see that here in the chart. Fresh high prices. Therefore, you'd still anticipate that real estate prices are going to be up. And if that is the case, well, then I would still anticipate that we have further to go in the cycle, even though the day-to-day stuff can definitely feel like it's the end of the game, like it's the end of the cycle. With that in mind, let's take a look at the home builders ETF as well. Well, that also had a bounce yesterday when everyone else was freaking out. It hasn't broken past 113.7. Call it 114 for a round number. That's our 50% level of this particular correction. This correction was also an overbalance in price, meaning it has been dumped more than any other correction since the 2022 low. So that's something that I'm paying attention to now. This could be part of a longer pattern that takes many, many months to play out. But for now, over that one day, had a reasonable move there when everyone else was freaking out. Now, the fifth fantastic chart is the US dollar. We do have an overbalance in price. I've got here time as well. It's basically exactly equal in time to the previous correction. And the idea around this is to let us know around major trend changes. So the US dollar has been trending down. That's about 14 days, and it has gone further in price than any of the moves on the way up. So that's a good sign that the bulls are starting to lose control. That doesn't mean they have lost total control, but they're starting to lose control. We need two more signals to come up. Well, and the time to overextend as well, because right now the time is equal, but the prices has extended. So we need to see a break in the swing. I've got a major swing low here and a break in the 50%. So we start to get some breaks below 105, then that's going to be another pretty strong signal that Bitcoin is ready to boom to the upside, and I don't know, the Don is going to basically all take us to the moon and beyond. Speaking of which, we have Bitcoin liquidity, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And another good sign there, so this is probably number 6, is that we got high, very, very, very high liquidations, and longs got absolutely slammed yesterday, $660 million. So two-thirds of $1 billion, I should say, and basically overall roughly over 800 million. So nearly $1 billion in that last 24-hour period. Yes, we've started a new day, still got some people getting wrecked out there, but this needs to refresh. Basically, a lot of people need to get flushed out of their leverage in order for that next move to happen. Another thing that we are way too one-sided, I think, still is the fear and greed. So put this down as potentially not the greatest. So the sentiment has still remained relatively greedy here, but the saving grace to remaining greedy here is if it can get back above the previous tops. So you can see this downtrend, and the market sentiment did poke its head above and has come back, and so far is putting in a higher low here. So it could continue just like what happened back in 2021, where we had this big spike down, big push up, and the price was still able to increase through this period. However, the sentiment was running out. This happened over the course of 4 or 5 months. So if that is playing out now, we can still get higher prices just like we did on the 20th of January, basically breaking that high by $1,000. But the energy you can see from the sentiment is essentially running out. And it's essentially just a matter of time. It's basically buying time here. So do you remain with the trend? Do you start to look for exits on the way up? This thing, if this continues to repeat like it did in 2020, 2021, like it did again in 2024, where you can start to see the energy die off and you've got to wait for that next entry point. Maybe it's happening again where we'll start to see the sentiment die off, but the price continue to climb higher and higher. Definitely something I'm paying attention to. And of course, if we do get up to some high prices again, like 110, you can imagine that if this price continues to consolidate here and then continue to hit its head on the diagonal that tests us all the way back from 2017 to the 2021 tops, and now we're at the 2024-5 tops. So there was December, this is January. Keeps doing that and falling back. It could be just a matter of time until we do see this thing collapse and then the price also come back for a significant correction. It's not to say that it can't push higher and then poke its head out and then come back to these levels. I obviously hope that'll be the case. The main thing I'm trying to enforce, or at least make you aware of, is that when the sentiment continues to die off like this, it's not necessarily a great thing, even if the price is going high. It's basically a bit of an early warning sign to say, probably likely it's good time to take some profits. Just based on previous history, you do whatever the hell it is you want to do with your money, but that's what I'll be looking at over the course of the next few months. USDT, and that's not to say that cycle is completely over, okay? I know people freak out. What if that happens? That would be absolutely amazing, because then you reset for the next move higher, and maybe you'll get some altcoin resets in here too. So USDT is the, can we call it the 7th most fantastic chart for Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies today because of that particular bar there. Now, we haven't got out of this trading range, so that's a bit of a pain in the ass. It's still in this trading range, which essentially means we're still going to see chop, but at least in the last 24 hours, it tested the 50% again and failed miserably and closed much lower than the previous top. So that's at least a good short-term sign. The longer-term sign has yet to confirm whether we are going higher, which is bearish for Bitcoin and cryptos, or if we are going lower, which is your F-off massive bull mania. So that's what I'm waiting on here. And today, at least, we're seeing a bit of a downside here, which means we're getting a bounce back for BTC. We're getting a bounce back. I mean, ETH is just following along, but the ETH BTC chart's pretty rubbish. And we'll take a look at the rest of the altcoins in just a moment. So that's where we currently sit. We've covered this on each of the videos because it essentially has been like the best chart to follow for any of these big moves up or down for BTC. We're really waiting for this pretty significant breakdown because there's not much support underneath that level. You can see this goes back to April 2022. And below that, maybe a little bit of a tiny support level here at 3.18, 3.2, which would still be quite significant to the current market caps. If we were to see that much market cap of USDT come into play, you'd have to expect that you'd see pretty big moves for some of the majors, Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, and then if it got into the hands of the degens, then those things could even pump a lot more too, because that's a pretty significant amount of USDT. Now, failing that low, then we can start to look at 2.7, maybe even as low as around 2.6, and maybe 2.4, 2.5. So really, it's all in a bit of a zone here, 2.5 up to 2.7. Otherwise, I'm looking here towards 3.2. So pretty good moves to the downside if we can just finally break 3.7% quite decisively, get some closes underneath that level. Next up is analysis of 5 major altcoins. Quick reminder though of the 4th birthday sale starting in the next few hours. Link in the top of the video description, name, email address, hit subscribe, and you'll also get notified of the TIA Indicator Suite Bundle. So this is for your indicators and TIA Premium. Huge discounts, roughly 35, 36% off the entire package here. So it's the best deal you're going to get this side of Black Friday. On top of that, you've got Bybit, $30,000 off plus a crypto debit card, which I've shown you here on the channel, works absolutely fantastically, and Bluffin, no KYC. And we have a 100K bonus for the month of, or end of January and February. Check the links out there for further details. Let's get back to the altcoins here. So we have ETH, 50% level. It has had a reasonable bounce back above the 3,100, but again, this thing is just chopping around left, right, and center. Again, you're starting to see lower highs form here, lower lows. The final saving grace is basically the $2,900 support level. In this case, you can see the weakness forming here as it closed below the 50% extension and essentially a very tight rock and a hard place because it's above the $3,100 here, the other 50%. That 50% is the entire range from August up to the peak here in December, sliced right through the middle. So it keeps testing those levels, so far unable to break down, but you're starting to get a bit of a squeeze to the downside. These levels are still okay, 27, 2,900, still, even if there was a correction there, it's not going to be the end of the world of the bull market. I'd say for ETH, you start to get breakdowns underneath 2,700 and closes in this zone between 21 and 27. It just makes life so much more difficult for ETH. And of course, breakdowns of 21, you got to ask yourself what the hell is going on with Vitalik Buterin. For Solana, you can see the closes here were above the 50% levels, slightly stronger here, but still above the previous tops at $250 and the previous lows there that you can see formed before that breakdown. So ideally for Sol over the next 1 to 2 days, closes above 250 so it can consolidate, tackle those new highs again. For XRP, it did it. You can see that nice bounce out. It was getting a little bit weak there at 260, came back, tested those lows, tested those previous tops there in December, tested those tops there again in December as well, and has bounced back. So ideally from this point for the strength to continue, closes above the 50% extension here. That's at 316, roughly around 320. So it can then go and tackle, finally, a new all-time high for all that XRP army. Hopefully it happens for you guys. Make some money, take profits. I was hearing a story today from someone who is still not taking profits. They're up into the millions. At the end of the day, it's up to you. I just hope everyone can make some money from the cycle, not get too greedy and hope that the thing goes to $100 or something crazy. It could, who knows, right? But at least just take something before it gets there so you've got something to show for it in the next cycle. The worst thing you want to do is round trip it yet again, because who knows, you might have to wait another, is that 7 years? 7 years to get back to break even. 7 years break even. Anyway, moving on from that, you do what you want with your money. SUI has been down. We had a little bounce yesterday as well. It did break the $4 level, the level I've been watching here, which then triggered the overbalance in time and price. So you can see from the top to the low, we had $1.87. So it's now done the largest correction of any of the corrections up from that August low at 50 cents. In terms of time, it's 21 days down, and that is the longest amount of time that we've seen from any top to low as well. I believe it even takes out this one here. Yep, 15 days there. So in terms of the corrections, yes, it could come back from here. It's roughly 35%. The previous corrections with the trend, so as the market is going up, 32%, 33%, 39%, but this one gets a little bit more questionable here in February 2024 into that March low, because even though it went higher, this was still an overbalance in time and price. So here to here, longer time and price to the downside, bigger than anything you saw in the entire move to the upside. So it's starting to tell you that the trend is weakening. And sure, it did go higher, but not that much higher. And then it collapsed from that point. So yes, although from here you could still see SUI have a bit of a bounce back. And I guess the psychology around that is people think, oh, it's awesome time to buy the dip. Maybe it is, but then we got to assess the risk and reward to the upside. You got a lot of risk to the downside because there's been a lot of people who bought up through here. You can see it in the chart. Volume is very, very high. You saw a lot of these corrections and then breakouts of previous all-time highs, big moves to the upside. So risk is big to the downside. And the reward, someone could argue that, well, it's going to go to $20 or $50 or whatever it is. Definitely a possibility. Just playing with the probabilities here. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is this is an overbalance in time and price. It can still go higher. How much higher? We'll have to let the market see. But if you saw this signal again, like we just saw here, played that pretty well, that it was likely a top, and it closes underneath those tops, you got to start to really question whether the SUI army, or whatever they call themselves, has the diamond hands to maintain this price. And are there more people coming in? Are there more people coming in to buy it up and push it even further up the price scale here? We'll keep watching this one because that's pretty interesting signals that continue to play out there. And PEPE, as we've been following, it has broken 50%. This was one of those signs that I used with Solana back in the previous cycle and was able to get out with the 50% levels. So you can see as it broke down from its 50%, there's 260, there's 50 cents, around 130, basically crashed from that point. PEPE breaking down past 50% doesn't necessarily mean that the entire cycle is over. In the past, it has broken past its 50% levels. It did it once back here, did it back here, did it here in 2024. And these corrections have been roughly the same. You've got a 68% correction back in 2023. You have a 64% correction in early 24. You have a 66% correction in mid 2024. And the only one that's different here is around 51% correction. So if we take a bit of an average here, 68, 64, 66, throw in 50 there as well. You know, it's going to be somewhere around a 60% correction. So we could be getting close to wherever that low is. 60% would take us down to around 1,100. And if we were to go down to one of the extremes of the move, say 68% here, then we'd be looking somewhere around 900 to 1,000. So keep that on your radars as well. It's nothing crazy. Pepe does it all the time. And that might even line up with the major diagonal here. There could be another reaccumulation area for one of the biggest pumps of your life. Like, subscribe. 4th birthday sale is on, probably by the time you see this. And I'll see you guys back here at the next video. Don't forget those links for, well, the official links for the X account here. And of course, Bybit with a crypto debit card and Bluffin with a 100K bonus. Guys, I'll see you back at the next video. Thanks for your time and attention here. And hopefully we do get this nice solid bounce out of BTC and consolidate above these levels. All right, take care. Peace out.